From Lalate News headquarters in Santa Monica, this is the Midday Report on Lalate.
It's a big day here on Lalate with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2022. Live and direct from the shores of Santa Monica, California, but I stand with Ukraine. We'll be going over the latest details that's unfolding right now over in Ukraine in the second half of this recording. We'll be looking at the advances against Odessa and what you need to know and how it impacts situations internationally. But first, we're going to start with the Build Back Better Act. The President of the United States name-checking it overnight, saying it's going to pass. Meantime, CR for stimulus getting a major update today. Is it good news or is it bad news? Then we'll be looking at those $80,000 of new stimulus checks. Have you got to them? You better. They're going live as early as today. Then third stimulus paying out. SS300, the opportunity to raise your benefits up. But is Jay Powell tasked with a new problem? Inflation, and now gasoline, and now corn and soybeans surging out of control. I'll look at the opportunity to raise your benefits up if you're on SSI and SSDI VA benefits as well. Then we'll be looking back at the big money for third stimulus and the big money the viewers got this week as well. It's an incredible recording with all the incredible sums of money. The first half of this recording going over the big checks available to you starting today, and the second part of this recording going over the economic developments that are coming by the minute, by the hour, because of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Surging gas prices overnight, surging grain prices today. A deal to potentially get more gasoline released from Venezuela could solve the situation. But is that deal in the works? I'll have that as well. Meantime, you'll learn for the first time on Home LA, while the current economic situation is here, if it's around in no less than 6 weeks from now, we could be heading into recession. What's going on? I have the latest details across the board that impacts your money, both domestically and from those world events internationally. And we'll be looking at the humanitarian crisis unfolding. We'll be looking at what's happening with Odessa in the next few hours as Vladimir Putin vows to take Odessa. What could happen, and I'll have the latest details from the ground there as well. It's a big home broadcast. I stand with Ukraine, and the details start right here, right now, as home gets underway. Good day, everybody. I hope you have a beautiful day. You're looking at the gorgeous port town of Odessa in Ukraine, the crown jewel of the 1700s, and could be bombed by Vladimir Putin by the end of today. All the latest details of what's unfolding and why this is a big economic event internationally as well, not just a cultural. We'll have the latest details of his advances and the humanitarian crisis at issue. Plus, we'll be looking at the big economic forces that changed overnight. If you have membership of this channel is intact, you got that major alert. Gas prices surging to record highs, up 40 cents a gallon in just 7 days. What is the White House doing on the situation? I'll have that analysis coming up later in this video. But first, we're going to start with Build Back Better Act, the incredible checks, name-checked by the United States overnight, and a new interview. That new interview will be featured in tonight's 1-hour special broadcast of Evenings LA. In that interview, the president says that Build Back Better Act will get passed. 3 clusters of checks, 3 add-ons of checks, the biggest payout you ever see in the history of the channel, at least $15,000 of checks across the land. SSI, SSDI, you all get these incredible checks. So what's in there? How much money is at hand? And what do you see? Let's go over all those incredible checks starting right now. There are 3 clusters of checks and 3 add-ons that amount to at least $15,000, but upwards of $60,000 of checks. In that first cluster, they have in there hazard pay and elder care. Also checks for young children, home repairs, and money for a new car, plus money for the college students. All these incredible checks will be detailed extensively in tonight's Evenings LA 1-hour special report. It's at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. In that first add-on of checks, Maxine Waters got in there a check to buy your first home. This is huge, just a little bit less than $25,000 for the purchase of your first home. And this is the first of 3 add-ons of checks to this incredible fourth stimulus recon, Build Back Better Act. In that second cluster of checks, we got home repairs and paid leave. Paid leave is a lot of money, upwards of $4,000 to $6,000 a year across the land. And that is the second of 3 clusters. In that second add-on, we got free home health care. $250 billion of free home health care for seniors and people on disabilities. In that third cluster of checks, we got lots of checks. Free internet for all checks, farmers checks, independent contractors checks, and seniors checks. 2 on the House, 3 on the Senate. On the House side, they got in there the Medicaid gap fix and the hearing checks. On the Senate side, they vowed to add in there dental, vision, and lowering the eligibility age of Medicare. Which is par for the course when we're talking about senators adding checks into this incredible recon, because among the checks they would add in there would be additional checks, including those MSCs. What are MSCs? MSCs are additional checks for adults, automatic, sent out from IRS, that would be added to the recon that already has $40,000 to $60,000 of checks in there. Who gets it? Eligibility would be the same as a third stimulus check. Single individual, $75,000 less, you get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you get it. Double it. Family 4, you get as well. Quadruple it. And if you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, Social Security rail benefits, it comes to you as well. It is not income, it's not taxable, and it's offered on a nationwide basis. It's not state stimulus, it's national. And it's offered also to adult dependents. $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter for up to 6 months represent the leadership to viewership of this channel. And that is MSC, one of the many checks already in the fourth stimulus recon that pays you at least $15,000 to $60,000 of checks. Now, the first opportunity to get a check sooner than that, of course, is CR for stimulus, a continuing resolution teed up for mid-March. But the breaking news today is a little bit problematic. What's going on? Let me tell you the details. A continuing resolution is set for mid-March, just later this week, with $1.5 trillion of discretionary spending allocated. The price tag agreed upon. The negotiations done. House, Senate, Republican, Democrat, $1.5 trillion of discretionary spending. Far more than enough for a $2,000 stimulus check for you. So what's new today then? A new report today suggests that the president's opportunity once again to ask for even a penny of that money for COVID would derail it and not get it done in the month of March. Yes. So over a week ago, I first detailed on this channel that the president was saying, I want a little bit of that money for COVID. And Republicans and Democrats said, no, you're not getting any. Then on Tuesday, in the State of the Union address, he said, I'm going to come back and ask for more money for COVID. And I said to you, I think he was winking at me. Either it was me or Jill. He was winking at someone. And I said, I think he's talking about the CR, but I don't know if he's certain. Well, by Friday, he had his budget committee, Office of Budget and Finance, send a letter to Congress saying, of the continuing resolution, with that mid-March deadline just a few days away from now, I want a little money for COVID. I said I wasn't worried because it's just a little money. Today, I have a different opinion of the situation. Why? Because a series of new quotes coming out from Republicans saying, I don't care if it's a penny or 2 pennies. I'm not giving you 1 cent from this CR for COVID. You have enough. So the new report out today says that Republicans would withdraw support for the continuing resolution of $1.5 trillion of discretionary spending if even 1 penny was for COVID. This is problematic because if that happens, guess what happens? The CR does not get done this week and gets done potentially a month later. Chuck Schumer, in a new comment released today, obtained by Lalate, says the negotiations on the continuing resolution are going very, very well. Excuse me? They were done. What do you mean they're going very, very well? Very problematic. Needless to say, the president can get that money for COVID from something else. He doesn't need to take it from your CR. Now, the President of the United States, in a new interview that will be detailed tonight on that evening's LA 1 Hour special broadcast, says that the Build Back Better Act will pass. In new comments with Heather Cox Richardson, Boston historian, President Joe Biden says the fourth stimulus recon will pass. And you need it because of the gas issue. But that gas issue is a little bit more problematic than that. I'll be featuring that in just a second on this channel. The big exciting news is that out of nowhere, this last Friday, the president surprised all of us with $80,000 of new stimulus checks. Yeah, you heard me right. First detailed for membership on this channel. in the newsletter that went out on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, last Friday, a brand new grant program. The average payout is $15,000 to $80,000 of checks. And are you ready to pounce, Purple Hawks? Get ready. Here you go. What's going on? Let's go over the details, and more of it, of course, is tonight featured in that 1 hour special broadcast, Evenings Lalate at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. A new homeowners grant program was dispatched by the White House, and that program is incredible. It's a homeowners program that pays on average $15,000 to $80,000 a household. Number one. Number two, the eligibility is much like a stimulus check. Single individual, $75,000 less, you get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you get it. Eligibility requires that you own a house. Other than that, you're ready to rock and roll. SSI, SSDI, Social Security, veterans, you qualify so long as you're a homeowner. But the sums of the money are absolutely incredible, and they cover items that many viewers of this channel has asked for coverage for in the year and a half that this channel has been around and never had it. Now you do. Such as property taxes, homeowners insurance, associations fees. Yes, average payout is $50,000 to $80,000. So what is it? It's a grant program. It's free money. It's money for you. Dispatched by the U.S. government, it will be run on a state-by-state basis. So if you've been with this channel since day one, it looks much like the earliest days of this channel with PUA. Remember when PUA for unemployment assistance went live on this channel in April 2020? Some states were live, some states were not live, some states were delayed, some states didn't even have their website working. In the case of this, it's just like that. Different states will roll it out on different days. There's not one website. There will be a different website for every different state. So I will be on top of the subject matter with you to show you the status on those incredible checks. And of course, we'll feature more about those incredible checks tonight on Evenings. Now, this is Jay Powell, your head of the Federal Reserve. And his ability to raise your his ability to fix inflation impacts your raising your benefits up if you're on SSI and SSDI. But today, the situation is a little bit more complicated. Not necessarily in a bad way, but in an economic way. What's at issue? Joe Biden had promised to raise your benefits up if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security and railroad benefits and veterans benefits. As president, it's published on his website at joebiden.com. How does he do it? Replace COLA with inflation. Now, why is this good? Because inflation is at its highest levels right now. At the time of today's recording, which you're watching live, if you're watching it at 11 a.m. or watching it later in the afternoon at 7 o'clock, the current inflation rate is believed to be somewhere between 7.5% to 8%. In the month of December, the inflation rate came in at 7.5%. In no less than 4 days from now, on Thursday, we will receive the January inflation number. On Friday, I said that Wall Street is looking at 7.5% for this number this week. Today, they're looking at about 8%. I've been looking at about 8%. Doesn't make a difference either way, because if Joe Biden swapped out your COLA with inflation today, your benefits would go up about $200 a month. Let's do the analysis. Your benefits are tied to a benchmark. The current benchmark, COLA, doesn't work. Inflation works. Once you're tied to a benchmark and your benefits go up, they never go down. So let's say you're tied to a 8% inflation rate today, you go up that amount. If Jay Powell reduces inflation later this year, your benefits don't go down. Moreover, your benefits get reassessed every year, and inflation is always a positive number. So if inflation goes down to 4% later this year, you go up another $100 across the board. So Jay Powell's ability to lower your inflationary rate is a good thing for the economy and doesn't naturally impair your benefits for SS300. But Joe Biden needs to make that phone call today because inflation will be going down. The question is when. In the second half of this recording, you're going to see me potentially scare you. I don't wish to scare you, but I gotta. Why? Because a new series of economic analytics out today suggests that if current situations at the time of this recording that were not here yesterday are here still in 6 weeks from now, we're going into recession. What's going on? All the latest details of why a major event was so big overnight that caused me, for the first time in the history of this channel, to send out an economic alert to members of this channel in the middle of the night. That economic event is worse at the time of this recording right now. And the analysis currently suggests that the situation is still with us 6 weeks from now. We're in a recession next year. What is it, and what does it have to do with Vladimir Putin? It has everything to do with Vladimir Putin. Plus, I'll be looking at the situation unfolding right now, economically at home, internationally with our partners, caused by Vladimir Putin. It's an analysis you've never seen before because the situation changed overnight. This is a brand new analysis of the situation for oil and wheat and those strategic alliances with our partner countries that are or aren't helping. Meantime, we'll be looking at the atrocities by Vladimir Putin against Ukrainian citizens today and what's being done for the humanitarian crisis and what's not being done. Then we'll be looking at those neighboring countries of the Baltic states, as Vladimir Putin may potentially be targeting them next. Those details, plus what's happening with the gorgeous town of Odessa, feature on this channel for nearly a week. Vladimir Putin's vowing to now bomb Odessa by the end of the week. This is the crown jewel of the Black Sea, and the shocking details will be unfolded as we go into the second half of this video. Stay with me as Home I Stand with Ukraine continues. But first, here's a little bit about the community page. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds with more incredible checks and the situation unfolding overseas domestically as well.
If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.lalate.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join Lalate Daily for the excitement of the new Lalate live daily. The excitement starts on mornings Lalate at 9 a.m. Home Lalate returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons Lalate at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on Lalate.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're looking at the beautiful area of Odessa that could be bombed by Vladimir Putin by the end of the week. What's happening with that? And why would not only be a cultural destruction, but also an economic destruction, not just domestically for the Ukrainian people, but also internationally as well. I'll be looking at the situation unfolding by the minute. It's a breaking, developing details, and you're watching it live on air, direct from Santa Monica, California, right now. But first, we're going to start back with your big money in the States and why the incredible money of the Build Back Better Act needs to get passed, and the incredible changing, developing details of SS300, what Jay Powell is doing, and what he can't do, because the situation is unfolding so dramatically across the board. It's a big second half of this channel, and it's a big second half of Home LA. If you're watching live at 11 a.m., here we go. And if you're watching at 7 o'clock tonight, here comes the second half. When you look at what's happening right now, Jay Powell, he has a big problem. Jay Powell is your head of the Federal Reserve, and his job is to bring down inflationary rates. He does it with a series of meetings, 5 meetings in the next 5 months, to bring down inflation by raising interest rates at particular meetings. But the problem is he has permutations which he didn't have even yesterday. What's going on? Gasoline prices are surging out of control right today. Never in the history of this channel have I ever sat on alert in the middle of the night saying there's a major economic event happening. And it happened last night. Gasoline prices domestically and internationally surged out of control. What's going on? And what does this have to do with Vladimir Putin? Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine obviously was going to disrupt oil and gas prices internationally. We knew that. But we didn't know how it was going to interrupt it in the way in which it did. On last week's recordings, I told you that the price of international Brent crude had surged from 100 to 110, and that anything over 110 is not sustainable long term. Where's it right now? Right now, the price of Brent crude is at $130 a barrel. No bueno. Domestically, gas prices featured on this channel every single day were $3.62 unleaded regular nationwide, according to AAA a week ago. $3.62. Then on Friday, $3.83. Today, Monday, March 7th, 2022, 11:30 p.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, $4.11. It's gone up 40 plus cents in 1 week. Is it sustainable? No. A series of new analytical reports says that $4 a gallon is not sustainable in the United States for 6 weeks. And if $4 a gallon remains the national average of gasoline in the United States by the month of May, we're going into recession. It's as simple as that, and that is a very big concern. So why did gasoline go overnight, and why is this a big surprise for everyone? In fact, it's a surprise for me. On yesterday's recording of Evenings Lalate at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I ran the following quote. The national average could get to $4 a gallon next week. That was the quote 8 hours ago. It's far over $4 now 8 hours later on Monday. What happened since last night? What happened since last night was a move by U.S. officials to potentially ban Russian oil in the United States. Let's go over what's going on and what you need to know. First, your economy is stabilized based upon a stable gasoline price in the United States. And a stable gasoline price in the United States is stabilized by an internationally stable gasoline price. If any of those numbers are going out of control, everything goes wacko. Well, what's going on? The international price of gasoline out of control, the domestic price of gasoline out of control, and all these events started, ironically, with this person. Yeah. Nancy Pelosi on Friday issued a letter to her House members saying that she's considering banning import of Russian oil in the United States. Good. This is a moral move. As a society, we should ban the import of Russian oil in the United States. Now, let's go over the economics of the number. Russian oil only amounts for 5% of the U.S. consumption of oil. It's very small. So banning Russian oil doesn't impact our economy economically or by quantity, because we use very little Russian oil, less than 5%. It's a good moral move to ban it. But here's what's the issue, is that as soon as that quote ran out, international gasoline prices surged. Why did international gasoline prices surge? Because many thought that if the White House, or at least the United States led by Nancy Pelosi with that comment on Friday, starts with a move to ban Russian oil in the United States, then other countries internationally would also ban Russian oil. In fact, you don't have to even guess it. Anthony Blinken, who is our Secretary of State, spoke about the matter less than 24 hours ago. He said the U.S. and allies are considering banning Russian oil altogether. Really? That is really likely why oil surged out of control. The way gasoline works is the more that's available, the cheaper it is. The less it's available, the more expensive it is. If you ban Russian oil across all our partner countries, then there's less oil available because Russian oil is no longer part of the food chain. And that's why the prices went to skyrocket. Brent crude went to $130 a barrel overnight. It was $110 7 days ago on this channel when Vladimir Putin was in Ukraine. So this is very bad. This is not a sustainable level. So what's going on with the White House to fix the situation? Or is the White House making the situation worse? You're going to have both analysis and commentary starting right now. First, the White House needs to stabilize the amount of production of gasoline in the United States and needs to stabilize the amount of production of gasoline for our partner countries. If the United States doesn't do both things at the same time, we all get hurt. All the economies suffer. Let's go over the example. There's a gasoline issue in the United States. There's also a gasoline issue in Italy. If the United States does not make sure that gasoline is stable in the United States and in Italy, both of our economies go down dramatically because we're dependent, coexistent economies. So we have to solve not only our domestic situation, but our partner's country situation. Now, the way we do it domestically is different than the way we do it internationally. And you know the answer for this one. In the United States, 95% of our gasoline is not Russian-based oil. In the case of a partner country like Germany, the vast majority is Russian-based oil. In the case of a partner company like Italy, the vast majority is Russian-based oil. So for us to pivot 5% off of Russian oil because of a Nancy Pelosi bill, fine. Moral move, good move. Economic impact on our economy, not inherent from that alone. It's what we do with our partner countries. Here's what's happening. What's happening is the White House has missed the step on this one. The White House should have had in place since October of 2021, in my opinion, a contingency plan ready to get oil for our partner countries if Russian oil is sanctioned and no longer consumed by our partner countries. In October 2020, before Halloween, I told millions of viewers of this channel that a potential Russian invasion of Ukraine could be happening in 2022, and it would be the major economic event of 2022. It was very obvious to report that subject matter before Halloween of 2021. There was 100,000 Russian troops at the border of Ukraine. I said, if that happens, folks, it's a major economic event. We all know that the major export of Russia is oil. So we also knew that was going to be a major economic event. Very simple. I was not alone. The White House reportedly told Janet Yellen's Treasury Department at the time, in October 2021, in the event that there's a Russian invasion of Ukraine, what things can we do to sanction Russia that don't negatively impact the economy? Did the White House, however, tell Janet Yellen to also analyze, and her team to analyze, the economic impact of oil disruption because of a Russian invasion of Ukraine? Yes, it did. So at least the White House told Treasury to do it. But did Treasury set up alliances, agreements, negotiations, meetings, deals to get ready to have our partner countries get oil in the event that we take Russian oil out of the equation? No. We know it's not the case because Anthony Blinken in interviews this weekend said we're now talking about the subject matter. Now talking about the subject matter? I've been talking about the subject matter since day one of the invasion. Day one of the invasion, I said, okay, it's very likely that Russian oil is going to be out of the equation just if this war goes on. So where are we going to get the oil for our partner countries like Italy? I said Venezuela. Venezuela is the number exporter of oil internationally. Let's get some oil from Venezuela to our partner countries. Well, now today, the White House is working on this. Today? Should have been working on this since October. Now understand the White House can move really quickly when it comes to economic alliances. This is part of what we call the G20 or the Western allies. Last year, you saw the President of the United States really very well with Janet Yellen get a global minimum corporate tax rate solidified between partner countries in less than 2 weeks. For the American Rescue Plan, the third stimulus package, they did it within about 2 weeks. So you can get allegiances from your G20 countries on gasoline very quickly if you work on it. Haven't worked on it. The new reports today suggest the White House is now finally trying to pivot and try to reach out to Venezuela, saying release some gasoline to our partner countries. But folks, this is a little bit on the last 11th hour. Let's go over the timeline, because I know you like those calendars, especially Calendar COD and Calendar Colleen. We're here in March. If gasoline prices remain the same in May, we're going to recession. We got 6 weeks to work on this, folks. You got to fix the situation now, not 6 weeks from now, because if you fix the situation 6 weeks from now, it's too late. We're heading into recession for 2023. White House should have had this ready in October. We all knew that there was going to be a potential invasion. White House should have had those allegiances ready to get those partner countries like Venezuela to release extra gasoline to our partners like Italy. So that if there is a potential invasion, then move. White House certainly was watching OPEC plus countries meet last week. I was watching it. You were watching them. And they said, we're not ramping up production. So they ain't helping us. Certain countries can help our partner countries and haven't. And while NATO's focusing on strategic alliances for acts of aggression, what about economic alliances? Now let's go frank to where we are right today. And this is actually very troubling. A series of new reports today suggests that this war, Russia and Ukraine, is really causing almost two types of economic global environments. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, we saw that China and Russia was brought into the G20 countries, and we was all one global environment. Now it's looking like there's going to be two different global economic environments, democracies and non-democracies. So among the democracy countries, we have to work as friends and allies. And that involves getting Venezuela to release gasoline, involves Venezuela getting relaxed gasoline. It also involves very difficult subject matters, like Iran. Iran has been in a nuclear treaty agreement stage with the United States for a while. And the solidification of that agreement would release millions of barrels of gasoline to bring down the price of gasoline internationally for us. But that deal's not here. So let me go over the situation for the gasoline right now and why this is out of control. Domestically, we can produce more gasoline, and that production is West Texas. It's Americans for Americans. Americans helping one another. Americans saying, I'll produce more gasoline for Americans to bring down the price of gasoline in the States and bring it down dramatically overnight. That solves us and our problems at home. Americans helping with Americans. But someone's not helping the situation. Who's not helping the situation? Again, the White House. The White House, in a series of new interviews, was asked whether they had reached out to West Texas to increase production of gasoline domestically. Refused to answer the question. But we don't need to have them answer the question because West Texas says they have not heard from the White House about ramping up production. Understand, if West Texas Americans ramp up production of American gasoline, gas prices come down in the United States. Great. Why not let West Texas ramp up production? What's so negative about West Texas making more gasoline for us fellow Americans? Oh, we want to buy $80,000 electric vehicles. We can do that at another day. The president over the weekend was tweeting that you should all go consider that beautiful new GM pickup truck that's $80,000 in electric. Good, Mr. President. But for now, can we ramp up some production of gasoline in West Texas? Because a lot of us can't afford an $80,000 electric pickup truck. And it's not particularly that attractive either. But otherwise, let's go back to the subject matter, which is that West Texas can solve our problems. The White House hasn't reached out to West Texas to solve the problems. White House hasn't reached out to those partner ally countries to get their gasoline realigned. And guess what? The White House was shot down today. Economically, let's say. Germany said no to the U.S. minutes ago. When asked whether Germany would ban import of Russian oil, as the United States is considering to ban the 5% we consume of Russian oil, Germany says, no, we're not doing that. We need Russian oil. We don't have an alternative at the moment. Now, let's go over the logic of this. If the White House had prepared with Germany to get an alternative for Russian oil back in October, I think Germany would say, yes, I have an alternative. The White House worked on it. We've been working as a team, and Japan and South Korea and India, we all worked as a team over the last 6 months to get an alternative to Russian oil. We all worked as part of the G20 alliances to get an alternative to gasoline ready. We have it ready. But for Anthony Blinken to say, oh, just don't use Russian oil, well, what's the alternative? I mean, you have to have an economic pivot move, and it's not jumping into an $80,000 electric car. That's why the White House needs to move quicker. Now, this is not a game-changing move. The White House needs to get those allegiances with those countries like Venezuela that produces massive sums of gasoline. And let's go over the details of how this works. In the case of West Texas, Venezuela, same analysis. You can only store so much oil. You only have so much storage facility. And once you're at full capacity, you can't pump any more oil. So you got to release what you got. Then once you release what you got, you can make some more oil. We're not even at that agreement yet. So they haven't agreed to release oil and they haven't agreed to pump more oil. All this is not being done by the White House across the board. Now, the problem is a little bit larger than that, because here is where I get a little bit antsy. And you know what makes me antsy in my pantsy? Is where we don't know the risks. And which one is that? Wheat, soybeans, corn. Oil is easy, folks. Oil is easy. You buy it, you put it in a barge, you ship it, it lands at the port. The current oil situation right now is going to be much worse at the end of March because the oil arriving in your ports right now was bought before the Vladimir Putin invasion of Ukraine. So once you see the impact from the invasion, you're going to see it by late March. That's the oil bought then. Case of wheat, it's much more complicated. In the case of wheat, Vladimir Putin is now trying to take Odessa. He's been trying for over a week, and Odessa is the crown jewel of the Black Sea, a very agrarian community with rich soil. And that is a big area to export wheat and grain. Wheat and grain is surging out of control as well. But are you hearing on broadcast media? No. Do you remember the wheat crisis of the 1970s, where everyone was in their pickup truck trying to get wheat at the local store? No, there was no such wheat crisis. So this is something we've never seen before. And this is something that I'm worried about because no one's doing the analysis. When you don't do the analysis, this is where you get in trouble. In the case of recessionary environments, we often see them coming because we understand the analytics or the events or the numbers that are happening. Gasoline, we see it going up. We're worried that it will bring us to recession. Wheat, do you hear anyone talking about wheat? No. The White House was asked about it. They said we haven't even thought about it. Hold up now. Since October, we knew that there potentially would be an invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. So the White House should have at that time told Treasury, look at all the economic issues in the United States that could be impacted by Vladimir Putin, or at least Department of Interior, at least the Department of Agriculture. What economic industries in the United States could be impacted negatively by Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine? Wheat is so simple. Why could I have said to you in October that wheat would have been a casualty potential of an invasion? Crimea. Crimea was annexed by Vladimir Putin several years ago. Crimea is along the Black Sea. Crimea is down from Odessa. And right now, Vladimir Putin is trying to move forces from Crimea into Odessa. He's trying to take Odessa. It's the major port town. It's all that same beautifully rich agrarian area. We could have seen that a potential disruption of an agrarian part of Ukraine could happen in early 2022 as a potential risk. Well, I've been reporting it for over a week. And Reuters interviewed the White House just a few days ago asking, hey, have you considered whether wheat disruption and prices may be a casualty in the United States of an invasion of Ukraine? Why this is not? Has the White House pivoted to do anything to do with the situation? No. And what we feature tonight on Evenings LA special 1 hour broadcast is that many U.S. producers of your product, your breads, your cereals, traditionally don't buy wheat from countries like France and have had to pivot because they can't get it from where they normally get it from. If you are a farmer and you make wheat in the United States, you sell it. But suddenly the wheat is worth a lot more money, or the price is a lot more money, because there's a shortage of wheat coming out of Ukraine. What does that mean for millions of Americans? Millions of Americans may be going to the gas pump and saying, hey, oh my goodness, what happened to the gas price of gasoline? But then you go to the supermarket and you say, wait a second, what happened to the price of bread? When did bread go so up? And why is bread going up? Is anyone telling you why bread's going up? I am. Tonight on Evenings LA, I'll explain to you why, if you don't have this stabilized, then we could be going into recession faster because of wheat prices out of control than even gasoline. Here's why I'm concerned. I'm concerned because wheat is a much more pervasive consumer product than even gasoline. If you have to spend more for bread at the supermarket, you're going to be impacted negatively faster than the gasoline you spend. It's all economics, and it's all in front of us. So Jay Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, he has a big problem. He has a big problem. This week he meets with the FOMC meeting, and he has to determine how to bring down inflationary rates by raising interest rate, maybe a quarter basis point, as he said. But what he doesn't know is I have a brand new energy crisis in 7 days that I didn't have 7 days ago. Can it be fixed with Venezuela? Can it be fixed with Iran? Am I going to have an energy crisis overseas in partner countries that impact the United States? Are we getting increased production in West Texas? My goodness, Jay Powell normally has 1 or 2 things to consider. Now he has 20 things to consider. And here's the problem. If he comes in too strong on his interest rate spikes in April, not March, which is looking to be quarter basis point, we could be inverted. We could have too aggressive a policy by the Federal Reserve and too much casualty data coming on the back end. Bad gas, an energy crisis, a food and grain crisis, a stagflation crisis, an unemployment crisis, and a trade situation crisis. And guess what? By that point, you're already in recession. Now let's turn back to what's happening overseas internationally with Vladimir Putin today, and also what is impacting us at home. Over the last 7 days, I detailed that Vladimir Putin is trying to take Odessa. Odessa, of course, is on the Black Sea. The crown jewel of Catherine the Great. It is a major city. It is the number one port for Ukraine. What is Vladimir Putin trying to do? He is trying to control Odessa, because if he takes Odessa, then he controls all imports and exports out of Ukraine as its number one port. Then he's also trying to really create a moral victory or an emotional victory, because Odessa is such a spectacular town. And President Zelensky is very worried that Putin is vowing to bomb this spectacular, stunning jewel of the Black Sea, leaving it in a massive destruction, much like how he did in Gashan. You're looking at Gashan right here, just a few miles down on the Black Sea. This is coming in from Crimea, so it's not particularly far for Vladimir Putin to make that advances. Again, this is on the southeast leg of Ukraine. This is how he's coming in from across the land. This situation is very untelling, but let me tell you what's going on with Vladimir Putin as well, and what it means for you back here in the United States. We have two parts of the analysis, and first I want to start with the officials in England, who have a very different opinion of the situation than we do here in the United States. Boris Johnson and his UK Prime Minister says, you know what? I don't like what the West allies are doing. They say it's a little too weak. They say, first, they believe that this is going to be a multi-year war, not a several weeks or several months. Economically, you already know what that means. We can't sustain gas prices currently at the current level to month of May. If we're at the levels of month of May, we're in recession next year. Very simple. So while we may think this war may be a few days or a month, if it goes to May, we go into recession in 2023 at the current levels that aren't being fixed. But more importantly, the approach by British officials is, you got to do something a little bit more than we're doing right now, because this may go on for a while. And doing more is not just strategic, but also economic. Let me go over what Vladimir Putin is doing right now. First, let's go over the humanitarian issue. In the capital of Kiev, there's the city and the rural area. People in the rural area fleeing the rural area to come into the city because the Russian forces are now in the rural area and the people are unsafe. So they're coming in the city. So rather than evacuating to Poland, they're evacuating into the city. There's a new 17-second clip that has been released, I'm not showing on this channel for obvious reasons, that shows a Russian tank in a residential block in front of an apartment building, opening fire with an apartment building and causing several fatalities. This is in the district of Irpin. Then in the city of Mariupol, which again is towards the southeast, again along the Black Sea, you can't evacuate. What are we talking about? We're talking about these corridors. Corridors are areas of ceasefire zones in which women and children, unarmed individuals, can flee into neighboring countries and get out safe. There have been at least 3 meetings between Russian and Ukrainian officials to allow the safe exit of women and children through these corridors. Every time the Russian officials have violated. They've either, and in some cases, they've actually killed women in the corridor. The corridor looks much like your highway. You go out on the highway, you walk, it's cleared, it's supposed to be cleared for a certain number of hours, and you get to Poland. They get on the highway, and then they get, and then they're fired upon, or they hear shelling, or they're blocked by Russian officials. So the safe exit is not there. That has been featured on this channel since last Saturday, that breaking developing details. The detail today that's even worse to report is that now we're 10 days into this, and those women and children who have waited patiently to evacuate are starving to death. So they've been without water, they've been without food, they've been without electricity, and they've been waiting for now 10 days to get out of that confines, and it's getting very serious. So by not allowing them to safely evacuate, they're, in some cases, starving to death in their own shelters in the towns. The International Human Rights, the International Committee of Red Cross says the situation in Mariupol is desperate. That's Mirela Hodobala, who's the spokesperson. They're trying to get these people out of these towns before they die in their own home because of no electricity and no food. Safe passage is mandatory under international human law, and both parties would need to agree to provide safe passage to civilians leaving those areas. On Saturday, I said on this channel, I don't know how this story, the inability of Russian officials to honor a safe corridor zone, can stay on front page news for more than 24 hours. NATO alliance countries, their job is to protect one another. NATO countries protect fellow NATO countries. Acts of aggression against NATO countries that protect one another. Ukraine is not a NATO country, at least not yet. And so, as NATO countries look on, what are they supposed to do? Just look on and watch women and children starve to death in their homes? Because Vladimir Putin says, "Oh, put a tank out in the passageway. Don't let them get out of their town." And I thought I said to you, I think I was on Saturday, because it's Monday, March 7th at 12 noon. I thought I wouldn't even be covering the story in less than 24 hours. I thought this would be such a horrific situation that someone of these international organizations would say, "Hey," and I'm not talking about charity organizations, I'm talking about NATO, would step and say, "Hey, you got to solve the situation. I understand it's not a NATO country. You've got to solve the situation." I haven't solved it. I don't know how this can keep on going on. And we're only at day 10 of this ordeal. Imagine this goes on for 20 days. I told you last week that Vladimir Putin took the #1 nuclear facility in Ukraine. It was not to create radiation. It was to cut off electricity. And by cutting off electricity, he disables the ability to exist peacefully in a country. The Baltics remains another big issue today, and it's very unclear where it is. No one really knows the answer on this situation. The Baltics are a series of countries that are NATO countries that are abutting Russia, like Ukraine. And unlike Ukraine, which is not a NATO country, the Baltics are NATO countries. There's big concerns that Vladimir Putin may next be looking at the Baltic countries for invasion. Anthony Blinken visited those and included them among Lithuania. The United States has committed more resources. Additional forces, including F-35 fighter planes, have now landed in Lithuania, and will be deploying more to other states in the Baltics to ensure that they are sufficiently detailed and prepared to address any potential advances there across the board. What is my opinion of the situation tonight? My opinion of the situation tonight is that there's an economic battle that needs to be done. And the economic battle, many of these issues we already knew if we understood the risk of potential invasion in 2022 last year. And while any administration can formulate big economic alliances in times of need, these economic alliances haven't been done. We all understand that Russian oil needs to be taken out of the equation, but where's that other oil can come from? Venezuela? Then reach out to Venezuela in October last year. Get the oil aligned and sent out to our partner countries today. Germany says, "I'm not going to take Russian oil out of the equation." So get Germany some oil from somewhere else. It's not like Germany needs to have Russian-made oil. They just need oil. So get oil from somewhere else. The White House should have an entire task force dedicated to make sure that every country has enough oil, doesn't need any Russian oil, and that oil is en route right now. This is March, folks. We've known about this subject matter since October of last year. And then all these other industries like wheat and grain were potential risks then, they're risks now. There are government officials who are salaried employees. They're not appointed officials. And their jobs are to run these things on a regular basis. Task those people in those departments of agriculture, treasury, or interior and say, "Hey, I need you to know if there's going to be economic disruption of these other industries." Because if you don't do that analysis, it's too late. It's too late. Let's understand the situation right now. Jay Powell, you have to feel deep sympathy for. As the head of the Federal Reserve, his job is to fix inflation. But he's coming in at the moment with a quarter basis point increase later this week, based upon a 7.5% inflationary rate last month. The new CPI, Consumer Price Index number, will be released this Friday. It's the latest inflationary number, which gauges where inflation would have been in January. It's likely 8%. Okay, so he wants to bring us down from 8%. Wait a second. What's going to happen with oil and gas? What's going to happen with wheat? What's going to happen with Vladimir Putin? What's going to happen if this goes on 2 more months? What's going to happen with $130 a barrel for gasoline, Brent crude? Unsustainable. Jay Powell comes in dealing with the situation based upon today's events, but then suddenly blindsided because we go to $140 a barrel for gasoline. Yeah, you have to feel for Jay Powell because the White House is really not giving good clarity on how it wants to deal with this on an economic standpoint across the board. It's times like this that I sometimes think to myself, do things ahead of time. Prepare ahead of time. Prepare ahead of time. It's a day like this where we started the recording where I said the President of the United States wants an extra $10 out of this continuing resolution for COVID and asked for it today. We've been doing CR for stimulus for a few weeks. If you wanted the money for COVID, ask for it. Well, he did ask for it last week, was told no. So he should have moved on at that point and found somewhere else. He's back again asking for it at the 11th hour, right before the continuing resolution is going to be done. And now Republicans are saying, no, you asked for it at the 11th hour, we're kicking it over to April. White House seems to leave things to the very last second. But in the case of oil, wheat, Vladimir Putin, and economic issues, we only got 6 weeks to go, folks. 6 more weeks at $4 a gallon, nationwide national average at the pump in the United States brings you into recession. Well, more about that tonight on the Evenings L8 broadcast. But if you're watching the show live on air at 11 a.m., next up is the 1 o'clock Afternoons L8 show. Then we have brand new Afternoons L8 show at 3 o'clock. If you're watching the show at 7 o'clock during prime time, then don't miss also the 5 o'clock primetime show, Evenings L8 at 5 o'clock. And then after that, of course, is the Evenings Extra show at 8 o'clock. Say your prayers for the families in Ukraine. I certainly hope that they find a solution for these safe corridors. It's a very, very horrific story to report on. And day after day, week, hour after hour, I wonder why the situation has not gotten better. I also deeply wonder how the NATO-based countries can look at the situation and do nothing. Send your prayers for the families across Ukraine and, of course, Odessa. This is how it looks today. This is how it looked yesterday. This is the beautiful opera house along the Black Sea. President Zelensky says in new comments obtained by Lalate that Russians have always come to Odessa, and Odessa people have always treated Russian people kindly. But now he wants to bomb this beautiful town. Stay informed, stay focused, stay here with Lalate, and stay for the latest breaking news throughout the day as Lalate continues direct from Santa Monica, California.